All right, so what we want to do next is to understand what allocations are Pareto efficient in the Edgeworth box. So we're going to make a few assumptions on preferences. The first is that the marginal rates of substitution are diminishing. So the indifference curves are going to bow towards the origin. And so as you saw is in the Edgeworth box that I drew and the indifference curve that I drew, they're bowed towards the origin. So that means Rob's indifference curves are bowed towards his origin, and Frank on Friday's indifference curves are bowed towards his. We're also going to make the assumptions that more is better, so each of the consumers prefers to get more of either of the goods than not. And finally, we're going to make the assumption that there's no interdependence in the preferences. So Rob only cares about what he consumes and is indifferent to what Friday consumes, and vice versa. Friday only cares about what he consumes and doesn't really care what Rob consumes. Right, so it's important to note here when I say that both of the consumers have diminishing marginal rates of substitution. Friday's indifference curves are going to bow towards his own origin, right? So that's the top right of the figure. Okay, and the third assumption that I made, just to emphasize, is that Rob and Friday neither know nor care about the existence of the other person, right? They only care about their own consumption bundle. Right? So the only reason we're superimposing them onto the same picture is so that we can represent all of the allocations in the same box. Okay, so let's suppose we start with our endowment. We don't change anything. We say, all right, Rob started with his 20 apples and 30 bananas, and Friday started with his 60 apples and 20 bananas. And that's our allocation E. Is that a good place to be? Or are there better allocations? Is there a way to make everybody better off? Well, these are all the allocations that Rob thinks are better than the endowment. Right? All these allocations in this shaded area. Okay. These are all the allocations that Friday thinks are better. Remember, we flipped Friday's picture over. Just want to emphasize that. That means more is better says all this stuff is what Friday thinks is better than his endowment. Okay. Now, the question of is it possible to make both these guys better off is really, is there any intersection of these areas? And the answer is yes, right? Everything here makes both Rob and Friday better off than E. Some people call this the lens of improvement. Right? So in this region, Rob gets more apples, but he gives up some bananas. On the other hand, Friday gets bananas but gives up some apples. Right? But all these allocations here, so take any allocation here, like this one right here. Both Rob and Friday think this is a better allocation than E. How about this allocation F? Are there any allocations that are better than F? Nope. Any other point in the Edgeworth box is going to make one of them worse off. So F is Pareto efficient. And so how do we know that someone's going to be worse off at any other allocation? Well, let's look at all the things that Rob thinks are better than F. Right, so this is an indifference curve through F. So anything that would be better for him than F would have to be up here. Let's look at Friday's indifference curve through F. It's this one right here. So anything that Friday thinks is better than F would have to be here. More importantly, anything that's not in this region that I just shaded, this area over here, is worse for Friday than F. And anything that's not in this area is worse for Rob than F. So, in particular, anything that makes Friday happier makes Rob worse off, and anything that makes Rob happier makes Friday worse off. So there's no way to make them both happier. Therefore, F is a Pareto efficient allocation. So what's special about this allocation, this particular point F? Well, as you can see in the picture, the indifference curves of Robert and Friday are tangent to one another. What that means is that the marginal rates of substitution of Rob and Friday are exactly the same at the allocation F. So there's no mutually beneficial trade available at F. So once we're at F, is there any further trade that's mutually beneficial to these guys? And the answer is no. So F is Pareto efficient. In order to make one of these people better off, you're going to have to make one of them worse off.